Welcome along to the Tenacious Be podcast. I am your host, Ashley Bentley. I am a hypnotherapist, a coach, and a breathwork practitioner. I also have several decades of radio presenting and voiceover work under my belt. So it seemed like the perfect marriage, really, of bringing in my work in mental health as well as my experience in broadcasting, bringing those together and putting together a podcast. I'd like to very quickly thank our sponsor for today's episode, Integrative Coaching, Breathwork, and Hypnotherapy. If you are interested in sponsoring the podcast, please make sure to get in touch. You can email me on tenaciousbepodcast@gmail.com. So the remit of Tenacious Be is to build our resilience whilst deepening our self-care. And those are really two sides of the same coin, the coin of wellness of body and mind. So that is the goal of our podcast, and we'll have a different guest each episode. We are starting off with a series on arts and mental health. The name of the series is Zen and the Art of the Mind. So we'll be speaking to different artists about their creative process and how that helps their mental health, and maybe what else they're doing in addition to work on building that resilience and deepening that self-care. So the goal of Zen and the Art of the Mind is to hopefully inspire people out there who may not have a creative outlet to begin thinking about dipping their toe into a creative outlet and trying something out, because it really is such an important aspect of the human experience. So hopefully this series, Zen and the Art of the Mind, should help inspire those who don't have a creative outlet to start to incorporate one into your life. But it's also for the artists out there who might be struggling with their mental health. And hopefully it will be good for those artists out there to hear from other artists and how their process helps their mental health and what else they're doing in addition to their creative outlet to help build their resilience and deepen their self-care. Our very first guest is the lovely Miss Valerie Miller, also known as Valkyrie MC. So I'll be putting all of her links in the description to all of her socials. She runs an amazing community center, which is also a beautiful, unique shop here on the Isle of Man called Mother Teas. You can also shop online. She does have an online store, so I'm going to put links to all of these as well. She also has an offshoot of Mother Teas called Mother's Magical Things. Val and I are very dear friends and have been for a very long time, and we've been talking about having a podcast for many years, so it's really exciting that it's finally happening, and I'm so thankful that she's agreed to be our first guest. So everyone, please enjoy and make sure to stay until the very end, because the last 10 minutes of each podcast will be a guided meditation. And this particular guided meditation on this episode, both Val and I do together. So it's a real treat. Make sure to stay to the end so that we can get down to business and cultivate the witness. So without further ado, enjoy.
I'm going to jump in and just spring this one on you, because it just I was inspired about an hour ago. And it doesn't need to be left in. This can just be for us. But I just feel like this is I'm getting emotional already. This is such a special moment in your journey, and I would love to just honor that with a little 1 minute prayer and just bless the space and honor the moment.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.
Okay. Lighten this candle. I'm asking for universal support and cosmic guidance for the success of this podcast. Magnetizing the perfect guests at the perfect time. May our words offer the precise medicine in the precise dose, reaching the souls who will benefit the most, touching the hearts and opening the minds of everyone who encounters this episode and the many, many episodes which shall follow. Setting a clear intention to be in service of the divine, assisting the listeners on their healing journey back to themselves, back to source, as we gently and patiently walk each other home. I raise my glass and I bow my head to the humble beginnings of the Tenacious Be podcast with your host, the goddess, the badass, Ashley Bentley.
Oh my God. Okay, I am speechless. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. Wow. Okay, I am very privileged for that moment, and thank you so much. And thank you so much for being the very first guest. I haven't actually properly introduced you. You've just introduced me, and you've introduced the podcast. Thank you so much. My goodness gracious. So I'm going to read out a bio that was written on your about you by Mythic Rhythmic. You can find her on Instagram. Is it a she?
She, yeah.
Yeah. So Mythic Rhythmic on Instagram wrote what I'm about to say because it's a wonderful introduction. I am very pleased to introduce to you the rap artist, entrepreneur, and poetess that is Valkyrie MC, aka the lovely Valerie Miller. Based in the Isle of Man, Valkyrie is a single mother with a disability who refuses to allow her challenges to come between her and her goals. Her name is inspired by the old Norse mythology, wherein a group of maidens who served the god Odin went to the battlefields and chose who amongst the slain warriors would have a place in Valhalla. To become a Valkyrie is to shed the physical in order to become the celestial. It is this fierce yet angelic presence we find in the spirit of Valkyrie MC as she shifts shapes into a hopeful beacon of celestial power and awe through rhyme and meter. With her wit, wisdom, and seriously spoken lyricism, Valkyrie MC ever so surely helps to push aside the chaos around us and reveal the beating heart beneath it all. And that is really the overarching goal of Tenacious Be here, to really help people build their resilience, deepen their self-care. This is what you've shown me over many years. I might as well say it. Yes, those of you who don't know, Val and I are very dear friends. We've been dear friends for over 12 years now. And I've learned so much from you, and we've had such amazing conversations. We are never short of conversations. And so I'm so honored that you have agreed very kindly to be my first guest. Yes, so we're at the very beginning of Zen and the Art of the Mind, which is all about arts and mental health. And so this is to help inspire people to have a creative outlet who may not have a creative outlet. But this is also for the artists out there who might be struggling with their mental health and learning about other artists and their creative endeavors and how they use it to build their resilience whilst at the same time look after their self-care. And we spoke a little bit before we started recording, and there's just a million things we can talk about as per usual. But I thought those of you who watched the little mini pod that we recorded a few months ago, where you were discussing your OCD and how you've been able to channel that into your creative process, just really amazing. So hopefully we'll touch a bit upon that at some point today, because you were saying you've had some more really interesting revelations. Those of you who haven't watched it, I encourage you to go watch the little mini pod that has already been released. But I also wanted to talk about the obstacles. Once you began to find your voice and this lyricism that just exploded once it sort of came into your life, you very not long after began to physically lose your voice, began to physically not be able to write or type these lyrics. It's almost like you've been given the biggest gift in the world, and then suddenly it's like, nope, every avenue to explore that gift starts shutting off. So I would love to hear about that time in your life.
Yeah, so I have struggled with symptoms of pain, fatigue, and digestive issues my whole life. So I've always known that I've been navigating some kind of a health issue, but it was never really acknowledged or diagnosed with any medical professional. I was told I had fibromyalgia at one point, so I just kind of left it like that and thought I just have this thing that no one really understands, that creates these issues. And I think also I felt, because I had so much trauma in my childhood and so many mental health issues, and I very much believe in the mind body connection and have been raised that way. I think I felt that the pain that I was experiencing was something like that, that if I healed my trauma, then I would heal the pain.
Yeah.
And as it happens, when I turned 30, my symptoms started to worsen quite drastically, rendering me disabled. And that happened really, really fast. So I went from, living with pain to being disabled with pain. So it was quite a drastic change in my life.
Yeah.
Now, around about that time, I was being pushing more to be investigated because it was kind of out of control, just where you feel like your entire body is turning against you. You know that something's really, really, really wrong. Um, so during that time, it still took a while. It still took a few years, but I did end up getting a diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So things started to make a bit more sense then, and I started to have an understanding for really what was going on with my body. And even though I still do believe in that, the mind-body connection, very, very much so, having that realization that actually this this is something that I was born with, where my connective tissue is affected, it doesn't work properly. Um, and I think one of the reasons why it started to get worse is I'd been doing a lot of yoga, not understanding that with hypermobility, which is part of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, not being held together properly, over stretching is kind of the worst thing that anybody can do with this condition, really. Um, so yeah, I'd started to, around that time of 30, which was also the time where this creativity kind of burst open in me and really came to life. I was really starting to feel like a confidence in myself that I'd never really had before. And um, I had started my project Mother Teas in that year as well, and I just really felt like I had just got wings and I was ready to fly.
And you did your TED Talk as well, didn't you?
Talk, and yeah, just I could see my whole future opening up in a way that I hadn't really experienced before. And it had also been the interestingly, the year before my condition got really, really bad, it was the best year I'd ever had. So that I was experiencing less pain and more energy than I'd ever had in my life. And that's really why I just dived in and suddenly felt like I could, take on the world. Um, and that's probably partially as well what caused the big crash. Anybody who lives with chronic health issues will be aware of the boom and the bust cycle.
Yeah.
And when I experienced that boom that year before everything kind of crashed, I mean, I went big boom,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
big bust. And that was 10 years ago, really. And my bust was, turned out not to just be a phase. It really has become my normal living with this level of disability. And obviously within the 10 years it's fluctuated, and
Yeah.
there's some things have improved whilst other things worsen. And but I've been in a realm of an extremely more severe condition, or severe symptoms, than I was ever living with before. So yeah, that's just a bit of background into the sort of nitty gritty of the physical aspect of losing my voice. Um, so it had already affected my hands and arms and legs. I had to give up hairdressing. I wasn't able to walk very far or lift anything heavy. And in that time, and I was already writing a lot. I've always loved writing and poetry, and I actually couldn't write anymore due to pain. I couldn't paint or craft. I used to do a lot of craft and make jewelry, and I had
Yeah.
allotments of garden, all of the things that I loved to do, dancing. Suddenly I couldn't do any of those things anymore. But with the kind of mentality that I have, I don't, or I certainly do my best not to victimize myself, and I will just see what opportunities I have or how I can reframe the situation. So what I had when I lost all of my other physical abilities was my voice. So I just threw myself into that, and I was like, if really telling myself, if I've got my voice, I'm okay. I can live without the writing, I can live without the dancing and the crafting and the gardening. I've got my voice.
Yeah.
And I really started to strongly identify um, with my voice, and I was rapping my ass off, and I was loving it and developing skill and just really falling in love with finding something that I was so passionate about. I've never had that passion with anything when I was a kid. I think I lived with, kind of an underlying depression for most of my life, where finding anything that I could really say I was truly passionate about, it just wasn't there through my childhood. So this was really exciting for me to have that passion. And I rapped and rapped and rapped until I started to experience the same pain in all of the tissues in my throat and across my chest. Um, and I guess I just kind of pushed through the pain, until I couldn't push through the pain anymore, and I completely lost the ability to talk, let alone rap. And when I say completely, I could,
Yeah.
in a completely silent environment, I could communicate like that. Um, Absolutely agonizing. But as soon as there was any other noise to compete with, if I'm out on a pavement talking and a car goes past, I'd have to pause, wait, this kind of a thing. So rapping was completely out of the question. Um, and honestly, that was like one of the most devastating things I've ever experienced. And I've experienced a lot of devastation, but there was something that found so difficult to reconcile with this one thing, more so than any of the other difficulties that I've had in my life. And I guess I had identified so much with my voice that being removed felt like, well, I have nothing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not true, but it's how I felt.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there was um, just a grief that was like no other. Um, so yeah, I don't know whether you want me to keep going or.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I remember this time very well, and it's just like Jesus, as you say, just right when you're like, yes, this is it, and it's like, nope, and it's like, oh my gosh. But then, so walk us through, because I know it got, was it after you lost your voice when you couldn't write or type, or was that happening at the same time?
That was before, so I couldn't
Right.
or type before I lost my voice.
Right. Okay.
The
Okay.
voice was was the last thing. And I remember at that point then thinking, well, still trying to find the thing, and I thought, well, if I can't, and this was still, I guess, being in that place of like coping through doing. I have to
Yeah.
have a thing to dig into to be okay. And I feel this is really the blessing of what I've experienced is every crutch that I've tried to reach for has been taken away from me until I have been left with there's nothing left to do but be, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember at this point when I lost my voice, I was thinking, well, I've still got my mind. I'm going to become the best meditator. I'm going to meditate all day and I am going to be,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
was witnessing myself doing that and being like, are you ever going to learn? Like, and I thought, if if I do this, and I remember sitting and having this like realization that if I try and avoid myself by going into this, I'm going to do meditation now. I thought I will lose my mind. You can guarantee I'll have an accident. I will become brain damaged or something like, And I thought if I am not getting this message yet, then I will. I thought my mind is all I have now, and I need a different approach. And
Yeah.
um, I guess that approach was more a non-approach, a just a surrendering.
Well, so often that is the first answer before the positive change can occur. That the full and complete radical acceptance, the surrender, um, so that change can happen. Because otherwise, you're just gonna stay in this whatever pattern one happens to be in. So, would you say? Um, like your tenacity is like there is no need to build your tenacity has always just been at a fever pitch, but so I suppose this was the sign of deepening that the self-care, and the surrender and the pulling back and the just the be the you've got the tenacious part.
Yeah.
And yeah, so walk us through how were you able to keep the creative process going when you couldn't physically write or type, and you couldn't speak the lyrics.
So, in a world in my head, essentially. So
Yeah.
there was a day where I stopped rhyming. And I mean, not a day, I continued to work out lyrics, rehearse lyrics in my head, and try and kind of buzz off that. I remember once hearing about Jay-Z, how he's known and renowned for he never writes. He just works everything out in his head and must just have that photographic memory. And he's like respected and revered for this. So I would try and like reframe it like that in my head, that rather than being this like, poor disabled victim who can't write, it's like I can do this shit in my head and I still can produce as many lyrics as anybody else, and I can do it in my mind and I can develop that muscle. But even hearing myself say that, then I can still see there's the trappings that it's such a fine line of like reframing something in a positive way, but then also avoiding, or let me find the right word, allowing like the ego to come in, I guess. So just still trying to find out, how can I be good, how can I achieve, how can I even be superior or be respected by others for a skill, all of that kind of thing, like needing to source my value from something I can do.
from outside yourself. And I mean, this is how society brings us up. Basically, it's you know, we are brought up to praise um being productive, and you know, not we're not brought up to say, you know, you are perfect exactly as you are, and don't forget that, and don't forget to, you know, to rest yourself properly. And that that is just as important as working on building strength and working hard. We're not highlighting that. That's not considered sexy. Resting yourself, which you know, it absolutely should be. And I think we're starting to kind of get there, because there's an epidemic of anxiety and depression and burnout and stress. And so the tide has got to turn. So hopefully people are starting to get the message now. um Now I know your voice is much better these days. You're able to utilize it much more. And you started doing small, really short um sort of performances on Instagram, which I
Hmm.
think was that really sort of was really beautiful, because of it, you know, you're not doing it for 20-30 minutes, you know, just a couple of minutes to kind of take care of your voice, but also take balance out everything. So yeah, tell me a little bit about what brought you into healing, self-care, anything like that.
So the so I think it was about a 3-year period that I couldn't rap at all, um, and struggled to even just talk. So I think that was 3 years, maybe a bit more. And then it was actually um, the pandemic, when we went into a lockdown, that I quite quickly started to recover. Now, I do believe that that was the main thing, because I know with the pain that I live with, rest is the only thing that fills my tank up again.
Yeah.
The pandemic was the great rest, the rest like no other. And you know, I was pregnant at 17, I had a mortgage at 18. I've um my elder sister has a learning disability, so even through my younger years there was always a feeling of responsibility. And you know, and I literally left school, left home, and at that age, at 16, pregnant at 17. And in that first week of lockdown, I remember just having that realization of like, I've never stopped. And I know this isn't unique. I think there's so many of us are in this situation. But I mean, like, I didn't even just have that little gap when you're 18, 19, 20, like probably most people do. Um, so yeah, and then especially after from becoming really ill, you know, I still never stopped. I mean, I slowed right down. I had to leave my career in hairdressing, but you know, I opened with a tease, and even though that was a more casual role, I was still a single parent and I was still working every day. Um, so yeah, having that just complete stopping,
Yeah.
not leaving the house, not having anywhere to go. My son had just turned 16 in that time. He was independent. He was doing his own thing. He started work. So even things like washing school clothes and stuff, it was like I had nothing to do. And really quickly, my voice started to recover. But so I do think that that was the main thing. But there was a couple of other things around that time. I actually started a medication, LDN,
Right.
um, time as well. So I do think that that played a part in me recovering somewhat. And then in the more kind of metaphysical sense, something happened precisely at that time as well, where there had been a trauma, a not long before I lost my voice, um, something that had happened that I didn't really speak about. I quite often, as is the case with trauma, is just, you know, put a lid on that.
Yeah.
Uh, and for, I think for at least 4 months, I didn't. suffered completely in silence. I didn't tell my nearest and dearest. After 4 months, I did share what had happened with my mum, my sister, you, and a couple of other friends. But I never really voiced it. I do feel there was a silence and a protecting of the people who had caused the harm.
Yeah.
So what happened at around this time is I wrote a song, and it detailed quite specifically, it wasn't abstract or anything. It was really quite literal.
Yeah.
uh, Saying exactly what happened, and I did release kind of anger and my own feelings about what had happened in this song. And I also reached out to the person or the people who had caused the harm, and I had my voice. I said what I wanted to say, and it was still loving and calm and all of those things, but ultimately it was saying, you caused damage, this is what you did, and this is the impact of what you did.
Yeah.
It was like kind of immediately after that my voice started to return. So there is the more kind of practical, like I took this medication, there is the I rested for the first time ever. And then energetically, I really do feel like that kind of cleared or shifted something. And just circling back to what I said before, how I used to believe that all of my physical issues was to do with psychological issues, then I learned that actually there is just the physical thing here as well. I believe it is both. I think that,
Yeah.
and many other things as well.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, 100%. I do think that everything that I experience physically is intertwined with something energetically.
That is it's so amazing how literal the losing of the voice when you pushed down what had happened to protect others.
I
You
remember as well, sorry, this just popped into my head. An older lady came into my shop, um, maybe sort of at the midpoint between losing my voice and then it coming back somewhat. And she had a vibe, these people who they feel like they're from another realm, that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And she spoke to me, and she could see that I was struggling to talk. And she asked what was going on. And I just, I told her I didn't know, but um, or that I'd been to the doctors and whatnot. I think this was maybe even before I'd got diagnosed. And she held my hands and she looked me right in the eye and she said, "There's something you need to say, or there's something you're not saying that needs to be said."
Wow.
And I
Wow.
did really feel that, like, we know when something resonates as truth, don't we? And
Yeah.
sometimes we say things and it's just over your head. But I knew this lady was spitting truth right there, but it it didn't super register until that moment where I did find my voice over what had happened and experienced the almost immediate recover. Well, I don't want to say recovery because I've never recovered, but going from here to here.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. And what a beautiful example of I love it when seeds are planted, seeds of truth, and it may not be the right time for it to fully flourish, but that woman planted the seed. You knew it was right, but it wasn't the right time to release it. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing what a literal representation of um, you know, losing your voice and metaphorically and literally. And then when you even the other, the medication and the pandemic and the rest and everything, I think it seems pretty plain that the major aspect was speaking your truth. And there's and what a beautiful it's a beautiful silver lining to a really awful situation to go through. And I think you're right. I think one thing that I'm sort of really resonating with is this this story that's going on inside. We all have a story that's going on inside, that's we're continually trying to match the story inside with the story that's going outside, and vice versa. We're continually trying to match that story outside that's going on inside. And the only way that our subconscious can communicate with us is through symbolism and through dreams and symbolic health problems. And I very strongly believe, and as I too also have oddly enough Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well. I mean, it just, that's a whole other episode in and of itself. I definitely want to do a whole series on chronic illness and mental health and the connection there. So so we'll do a deep dive on that in another episode, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
Something really wild that just popped into my head, and I'm not even sure if I've ever told you this. It's something I discovered about a year ago, going through some old papers. So this was a collection of songs and poems that I hand wrote probably like a year before I lost the ability to write. And yeah, going through all of these old papers, I found this really scruffily written song that I wrote called The Silence. Now, so this is before disability kicked in, before I lost my voice or couldn't write or anything like that. And something that you know about me is that, which is another kind of interesting part of this whole voice experience that I've gone through, is I have had trouble through my life controlling my talking. I've been pulled up on it a lot of times, especially in relationships where it's been like a problem, and it's something that I lived with a lot of guilt and anxiety. And I'd maybe go into a social situation being like, right, I'm just going to ask how they are and then not talk and let them talk and ask them questions about themselves. And then it's like I have that intention, really conscious. I go in unconscious. I'm talking, there's no conscious awareness, it's out of control. And then I like being drunk, and then I'll leave the situation and be like, what did I do? I did it. You know? So that's just been like an ongoing thing in my life, like feeling like my voice is a problem. I lived like that for a long time. So yeah, I wrote this song called The Silence, and reading this, knowing what I experienced probably 2 years after writing that is when I lost my voice. It was like a curse on myself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was basically saying, like, when will it stop? When will it cease? Something about my voice being an unstoppable, relentless beast.
Oh wow.
Like something about being 6 foot underground, so I can finally. So I feel emotional. Like, I literally wished myself dead because that's the only chance I have of escaping my own voice. I mean, what?
Wow. Wow.
I wrote those words into a rhyme, and then I really did experience the silence. So, be careful what you wish for. Really, really. I've
Yes.
learned in very brutal ways multiple times through my life, to a point where I actually became fearful of wishing at all because of how wrong that has gone.
Well, I think it went so wrong because it needed to go so extreme to show you how important your voice is. And it is so interesting how you and I gravitated towards one another. And I had a problem with my voice of not knowing when to speak, and having continual people sort of talk over me. And so I know that there was the occasional time where I would feel that with you. But actually the different thing with you though is like I know I've said this a number of times, and I will say it again. And that is like every time you open your mouth, it's I am always interested in what you're never like just going on and on about something that's just, you know, like, oh, will this person please shut up? It's always fascinating, it's always relevant, it's always interesting, and it's always yeah. So in a way it's like I don't I want you to keep going. And in a way also it's been a beautiful you know, our evolution together, of me finding my voice a bit more, and you being so so conscious of my work as well, what I'm trying to do. And it's been just so beautiful. But my God, I mean, I can't imagine what it was like running into that. So yeah, so you recently found those lyrics, did you? It just in the
That,
last.
yeah, and I wept reading it
I
because I
bet.
just, you know, and it kind of did circle me back as well to, and I guess in a sense I felt really good because it was a reminder of, at that time when I was writing, that's when I was feeling so powerful and so good. But I thought how the truth really was there wasn't the strong foundation underneath me. I was feeling powerful and good because of what I felt like I could achieve, um, whilst actually still being violent towards myself. You know, I knew about even some of the relationships that were in my life at that time and how I was allowing myself to be treated and how I was treating myself. And it is really through this journey of illness that has fast tracked me. 10 years of disabling pain, it doesn't feel like a fast track, but in this sort of monumental soul journey,
Yeah.
it do, you know, I don't know if anything really could have gotten me to where I am now.
It does do a good job of stopping you in your tracks. And I, you know, I just had a thought. I do wonder, you know, people over the years who may have told you that they had a problem with the amount that you were speaking. I I do wonder whether or not, because I mean, geez, you know, I love anytime I bring you up and you're not around. If I bring you up to other people, like people just love it, just collectively love you so much. And it's just always like she's always got something interesting to say. And it's always, I do wonder whether people who have had a problem over the years have had an issue, just with maybe you being a strong independent woman and them not knowing how to handle that. Because I've seen you all through the years have amazing conversations with people, and you never, whilst you may, you know, hold court or talk at length about something, you never dismiss anybody who wants to talk. You always want to hear what people have to say. It's not just all about you. It's always, you're always bringing people in. So the people who feel like that's an issue, I wonder, well, we're all mirrors for people anyway, aren't we? So anybody who's got an issue with that, it's really, they've got an issue with something inside of them, because you're not being out of order. You're not being dismissive of other people's voice. You're not doing anything like that. So I don't, does that, would that fit, do you think?
Yes, and you're being very kind because you like me. But I do think what you're saying is true in a sense, but then also I do think you know, I did need to be accountable for just the lack of control, because it's like, you know, we've both gone through addictions and it's in that realm. Like it did not feel good to me, not just because people saying it to me, but because me feeling like I want to have control over when I stop and start talking, and I do not feel like I have control at all. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like that's to the detriment of other people, and that's really did not feel good to me. But yeah, there's nothing quite like literally not being able to speak. You learn to just sit back and listen, you know, really learn to just be a listener, which is still not my strongest point, and it's still something that I work on. And but I mean, the where I am now to where I've been is such a giant leap. It's something that did just pop into my head then, though, just to give an example of, I guess, even just the culture around chatty women. You know, even in the era that I grew up in, it's not something that tends to be revered. It's, you know, kind of quite the opposite. And I'll give you an example of something that's kind of was very jovial, but what I see is actually kind of pretty damaging. So when I couldn't speak, I cannot tell you the amount of times, like literally lost count of the amount of times where I'd be in the petrol station or some, you know, random place, and a random man asks me something, and I'd say, so, you know, like, sorry, I can't communicate and that I can't talk. And they'd go, oh, perfect woman. Oh, you're my ideal girl. And like, haha, you know,
Oh,
oh,
God.
green girl, she can't talk. So, and then I remember like a guy I actually know and was friendly with. I remember saying to him once, we were going somewhere where I was going to be meeting new people. And I said, oh, I hope, you know, have you let them know about, because it was going to be in a loud environment. I was like, if you let them know, I just don't want anyone thinking that I'm like rude or, you know,
Yeah.
boring or something. And, oh, no, don't worry. Lad, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially lads like quiet women.
Oh, it is, you know, and people, yeah, it is funny the amount of times people think they're being amusing, and it's like, have you really actually stopped to think about what you're actually saying here? Because this is, and I'm sure they probably think they're the only one that's said it, and yeah,
And it is, in some sense it's harmless because there's no intention to cause harm, but there is an impact there. And I think it really just did make me realize in those times, like, this has been the subtle message that I've received my whole life as a very talkative, outspoken female.
yeah,
This just like subtle, we don't like that, you're not attractive because of that, you're a problem because of that.
yeah, yeah, and you know, and how amazing that you're able to really not back down, and not only not back down, but just fully lean into it. It's like, this is I am going to speak my truth. I am going to keep writing these lyrics. I'm going to keep performing them. Your Instagram is such a great place to see and explore all of the different things that you've been doing over the last few years. Now, oh yes, I believe it is time for the pickle of destiny. So, so we've got a question here for you. The pickle of destiny is, each episode we're going to take a question that we've received. So please feel free to send in your questions, and we keep them nice and generic so that they'll fit for any guest. This week's question is, what are your first signs of stress and burnout, and what is the first thing you do to help yourself when you see that sign?
Okay, it's, I'm thinking kind of physically it is a bit tougher for me because I'm in chronic burnout physically.
Yeah.
It's be hard for me to identify. But what I do notice when I'm like, yeah, I need to come back to myself is I can sort of turn on myself mentally.
Okay. Right. So the inner voice becomes an inner critic.
Yes. So the bit, we all have our version of this. I think I've told you this before, but my kind of go-to is it's always around just being an idiot, being stupid, being a fool. So if I start to hear that, like, you idiot, that's kind of my first sign of like whether it's burnout or whether it's something else,
Yeah.
it's the indicator of something's askew,
Yeah.
something off, and the this needs investigating,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I
Yeah.
feel like I developed a level of awareness where I I catch that so quickly, and I'm not always able to rectify it quickly, but I'm aware, whereas it previously I just might not have even picked up that that was happening, or well, up until my early 20s, that was it, that was all that was happening,
Yeah.
with not 1 second of awareness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I, for the first time, learned how to monitor my own thoughts and be like, oh shit, like no wonder I feel so shit. It's like I'm just constantly telling myself I'm a piece of shit. Right, and so that kind of process then over, I guess, another 10 years where it's more like a battle where it's you feel like you know that what you've got to do, but you're not doing it very well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was, I guess, through 20 to 30 and through 30 to 40, the last 10 years, I do feel like I have, um, I'm not going to miss it. I'm not going to miss it once. Like if I turn on myself, I'm like, oh, I'm turning on myself. Um,
Good.
and then the only question is, how quickly can I turn this around again? Um, so what was that? The second part of the question, it was what.
Yeah. So yeah, what do you do to help yourself once you've identified that?
So I feel, especially this year more than ever, meditation is the the best thing for me. And I've
Yeah.
always like dabbled in meditation, but it's really clicked in for me this year, in a way where, again, I don't know whether it's just the right time or whether it's because I've just developed a level of skill where it's really effective.
Yeah.
Uh, but I know I can really quickly turn things around just by, I have an altar in my bedroom. I'll light a candle, I sit down, take some deep breaths, and meditate. And I have various methods for that. Um, Sometimes I will use affirmations. Sometimes it's just clear the mind.
Yeah.
Uh, Sometimes I do some breathing and I'll say, what does my inner child need right now? And I'll just allow to see what comes through. And if nothing comes through, I'll sometimes do a tarot card or an oracle card and receive the insight that way. But any little, within 2 minutes, I can, um, I think, alchemize a bad feeling or an off mentality, and just come back to knowing who I am, and knowing that I love myself. And
A,
I
a reconnection to self. Yeah, that is because I think yeah, that is a sign of a disconnect when that voice comes in and you said something just so true and a big thing that I want to get across to everybody out there is pay attention. Most people aren't paying attention to that voice. Sometimes I'll ask clients, what's your inner dialogue like? And they're like, God, I don't even pay attention. And so that is the first crucial step,
Mm.
because a lot of times what's being said we would never allow anybody else to say to us, and we're saying it to us ourselves nonstop. So cultivating the witness and really making sure that you pay attention to what you're paying attention to, pay attention to those thoughts, is that's such a huge skill to have, and everybody needs to really start paying attention to that voice and then
I
reframing things.
Yeah. And one other really valuable tool, because I know for a lot of people, meditation, and I do, I am on board with banging that drum now. Like, meditation is everything. Everyone needs to do it, whether it's just for 1 minute or whatever. Because it's through meditation actually that then it's easy to be the witness. Like, how
Yes.
do you, if you haven't cultivated the capacity to be mindful or be in a state of meditation? So if we do that little morning practice, or whatever way that we meditate, then it just becomes, then we just are the witness, because
Yeah.
we've that. But for anyone who's like resistant for meditation, here's another little tool. And again, this like may or may not work for people, but I've just found it so effective. I think I already shared this with you, but when I notice that voice coming in and attacking me, I kind of have this like visualization where I come in. So there's like the little me and big me, or the higher self and the ego, however you want to see it. But say little me is coming in with the attack, and rather than trying to stop it or make it go away, I validate it. But I visualize like I come in higher self me with like a boxing bag, and I tell little me who wants to attack me and wants to go at me, I'll stay as long as you need. Get it out, let it out, but you can't harm us. Hit the bag, do what you need to do. I've got you. I'm here. I'll hold the space, and but you will not cause us harm. And actually, what happens so quickly is the scrappy little like bitch, slut, whatever she wants to say, like lose the steam. So it's just like, and then just loses steam so quickly, and then usually just kind of comes in and I give her a hug and we move on. Like, the whole process is it. And when I say I'll stay here as long as you need, if the time ever comes that I need to sit with that all day, then I will. Like, I will honor that agreement that I make with myself in that situation. But it happens like 30 seconds to a minute, we're done, and it ends with a hug and we move on, and everyone feels good.
It's amazing. It's active imagination. It's a bit of a waking dream, and it is so powerful to our subconscious. Really works in these visualizations and these sort of the symbolism of what is occurring in these visualizations is so attractive to our subconscious, and it really helps to um, do exactly what you're looking to do, to quiet that inner voice. So often, I mean, it's, the I can't remember the quote now, but it was Martin Luther King about, you don't fight darkness with dark, you fight it with the light, and so when we have these awful feelings, the last thing that part of ourself is expecting is love. It's
Mhm.
expecting us to push it away, which just gives it more power. And if we do the unexpected, if we it's the ultimate pattern break, which we talk about a lot in NLP and hypnotherapy. Doing something completely unexpected, just it rattles everything and gives a lovely window of time where you can bring it to rest. And so what a beautiful thing. I'm looking at the time here. I know we were talking about possibly mentioning a couple of realizations you had about OCD. Or we can go straight into the meditation. What are you thinking?
Hmm. I'm not sure of the time. How long have we been?
It's been just right at an hour, so we probably, if you've got like maybe 5 minutes to give for the OCD, or we can just go straight into doing the meditation. What are your thoughts?
Um, what do you think?
I'm totally up for it, because we're not bound by any restrictions. I mean, so let's go for it.
Okay.
I want to hear what you got to say.
Okay. A brand new realization, and I think that, OCD, along with, everything in the realm of neurodivergence, I think it is so important to talk about, because as we experience, just even in our teaser, a few people would, as adults, listen to what I and you were saying, and we're like, oh shit, I have OCD, I didn't realize.
I've had
And
at least three people tell me, "Oh
it,
my, yes, exactly that." So yeah, yeah, yeah. So you've had that as well.
yeah, so that, I've had that as well, and then also I've experienced that. Even I've I've been like pretty conscious of my OCD for a long, long, long time, and then but still getting new revelations through hearing something someone else says, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's it. So I had this realization through a meme, funnily enough, that my employee Gabby sent me. We love to communicate in memes, as do me and you.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't even remember exactly what it was. I think it was like a video, um, with, I don't remember what the video or the image was, but the caption said something along the lines of, my OCD just constantly trying to prove that I'm a bad person. It was something along those lines, and I know
Yeah.
without the video or whatever, it doesn't make much sense. But so the girl who works for me, she has OCD as well, presents very differently to me, but it's something we discuss a lot. So she sends me this meme, and it was like this light bulb of like that. So I know I do that, and I've never stopped to go to like realize that that's OCD. So, and then it made me realize another thing I do, that again, I'm very aware that I do it, but never been aware that it was OCD. So one of those, that like a completely obsessive thought process of, and in a sense, this is something where I feel like it's like a self-awareness, or like a being the witness, but in the form of OCD. So it's like this part of me that's constantly monitoring, trying to prove, like a prosecutor, just trying to prove, see, you're dishonorable, or you're a liar, or you're scum, you think you're decent, but I've just seen what you thought, or I just seen how you manipulated that situation, just whatever it is. Just like there's a one of the witnesses for me as a prosecutor that is just trying to catch me out, that is trying to prove that I am a terrible, dishonorable, out of integrity person who's bound to end up in hell for the rest of my days.
Wow. Wow. And all from a meme.
All from a me. And then, but it's so interesting, because now I feel like I can challenge it, and I think I think, yeah, for the first time this week, I'm like, I think because I'm always trying to do that, I use that as more evidence that I'm a bad person. Because I'm like, why would you even need to do this if you were a good person? Like, obviously, there's something in your subconscious that knows. And, whereas now it's like, I feel like I can start to rest a little bit more in, I'm not perfect. I've told lies. I'll definitely tell another lie. I will do things that aren't 100% in integrity, but I know my heart. I know my goodness, and I trust in that, even if I make mistakes, even if I fuck up. And this is a a very empowering realization for me, because I can really start to claim my goodness in a way that that part of the OCD has never allowed me to do. Like, oh, you would say that, you're fooling yourself, and I can challenge that now as an obsessive thought pattern that does
Yes.
not sit, and that is an illness, and it is destructive. And then the other thing that linked to, and this is a bit of a wild one, but again, I'm just through that realization, I'm realizing that, oh, this is also OCD. So I've had this obsessive thought my whole, at least adult life, and I think even when I was a kid, where I'm I think I have a mental illness that everyone else knows and I don't. And the how I'm what I'm thinking all the time is, well, I've been around a lot of mentally unwell people through my life who have no idea whether it,
Mm.
think of things like paranoid delusion or borderline personality disorder. These are things that have been very present in my life. I've had a lot of insight into through other people, and seeing how they don't know. And so that I'll then think, well, I I don't think I do, but I wouldn't know, So there's all,
Yeah.
and then I think to myself, I start to try and prove it, and I think, you had eating disorders, you have, you were a drug addict, you have, of course it makes it, all of the dots connect, you are mentally unwell, and everyone knows and you don't. And then I become paranoid about that, and then being like, well, this is more evidence I'm being paranoid, and that's a sign of, and I just get caught up in knots around this thing. And so the really ironic thing is that it is a mental illness, that it's OCD.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're not all aware of it and secretly not telling you. That is the one difference. But you're right. And I have several clients with OCD. I didn't realize I had OCD until I had some sort of revelations about that. That's kind of what sort of shifted me from a very confident young lady into a very shy and withdrawn, just really very low self-esteem young girl very quickly once I started to get these intrusive thoughts. And it is so destructive. But on the other hand, once you do have the revelations about what it is, it's a relief, a huge relief. But then we're still left with it still being there. And of course, it will be tied to excess stress as well, how much it ramps up. um it's um it's a fascinating, and you're right, it's very interesting. As I've been working with clients who have it, one of the things that I do that I didn't realize was part of OCD is, if somebody gives you something, and it's not something that you'll ever use, you feel like there's no way that you can get rid of it. So receiving things from other people and feel like I can't, I have to keep this. I can't not have this. And then suddenly you find you've got a shitload of stuff that you've got you don't know what to do with, and you don't know how to get rid of it. You don't know
Yeah.
how. I didn't realize that, because that is something that I've definitely struggled with over the years. So yeah, it is fascinating to see the little the tricks that our mind will play. And now, how do you feel about, I take it the intrusive thoughts differ from the internal dialogue. Yeah, obviously they will overlap, but it's not there all the time, because it sounds like you've got a good way of um hearing that inner voice. Or is that, when we had the question from the pickle of destiny, what is your sign that you're overdoing it, and it's usually that internal critic really steps up. But that internal critic, is that's different from the intrusive.
It's it's different to the intrusive thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've not actually thought about that before. So I'm not. I'll have to sit with that to go. What is it that
yeah,
concerns them as being different? Um, but it's different. Yeah,
yeah.
there's definitely a something really specific about those intrusive thought, and there's even a separation with OCD between intrusive thoughts and obsessive compulsive thoughts.
Mm,
I, for me, anyway, I
yeah,
feel the when I've experienced intrusive thoughts, which luckily was only for a shorter period, in when I very first developed OCD. And for me, that looked like just out of no, it came with like a visual as well. So I would kind of see like, in fact, it was more a visualization than a thought. Although, yeah, but sorry, because it's like thoughts for me are usually words, but
yeah.
with my thoughts, it was more like a vision,
Right, right.
like a movie, and it would always be something terribly devastating happening to my son who had just been born. So that was when my OCD really kicked in.
Yeah,
Um, and what came with with that was I now have to touch wood like 3 times with this hand, 3 times with that hand, so that thing doesn't happen.
yeah,
And the next one would come in, it just throughout the day, all the time, something catastrophic would happening to my baby, and then coming up, it was always to do with touching wood, but there would be various routines and ways that I would have to do it to ensure that thing didn't happen.
yeah,
So I feel that to me is an example of very extreme OCD.
yeah,
And you just become like completely consumed in this world that you're in on your own that no one else can see. That was, yeah, very, very extreme. But things like the trying to figure out whether I have a mental illness that I don't know and everyone else does, that's it's just all speaking in my mind
yeah.
that feel yeah, there's no ritual that needs to come with it or anything like that, which was always, to me, the intrusive thoughts was always linked to that. And the word intrusive just really clicks with me in that particular instance, because it is almost just like a train out of nowhere going boom,
Yeah,
and it's now and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
uh, and yeah, the thoughts, it's more, rather than something just boom coming in, it's more just like a runaway train that's just like looping and looping and looping.
It is, yeah, it is quite a journey, and I really encourage everybody who's listening and watching right now, to definitely revisit our little mini pod that we did, where you discussed how you really took control of, it's like, okay, I've got this happening, let's use this to my advantage. I can do something with this, and it's really become a superpower in terms of your writing and the lyrics that just flow, and being able to, come up with very complex lyrics and memorize them, and in your head, all of these things. This is the beauty. This is the crux of having an artistic mind, is I think it operates on a different level. And that can be very challenging. But if we can find a way to use what exists, this phrase keeps popping up in my mind, and everything that I'm doing these days. Use what exists. Okay, this is what's happening. How can I use this to get me to where I want to be? So use everything. Be the MacGyver of your internal world. All right, this is going on. Right, we're gonna turn this into something amazing. So We are sort of coming to the end of our podcast, although I could just go on forever. And yes, we need to have you back on future podcasts. But it's now time to get down to business and cultivate the witness. Cultivating the witness is a phrase that the spiritual speaker Ram Dass used quite a lot, and I love it. It just really cuts to the heart of what we're trying to do, and what we need to try and do as often as possible in our life. So if you're wondering, well, what is meditation? Meditation is cultivating the witness. It's bringing you into the present moment. It's dropping you into your five senses. So a guided meditation is great because then you could just focus on the sounds and the feelings, and really go on a lovely guided journey. So every podcast we do this, and it will either be a combination of the guest and me, or just the guest, or however we want to do it. We're going to do both of us today. So you are going to start us off, and then I am going to take over. Now I'm just sort of bringing up some words that I have already written. Just so you know, those who are listening, if you are driving or you're doing something where you need to pay attention, please pause this and wait until you can sit in stillness. And yeah, so we'll give everybody a moment to get nice and comfortable. And I would like the very beautiful, very lovely, inside and out Valerie Miller, Valkyrie MC, to please start us off.
So just taking a moment to settle and get comfortable, closing our eyes, flattening our feet on the ground, straightening our spine. Seeing if we can find that sweet spot between holding the structure of our skeleton whilst allowing our skin and our soft tissues and our muscles to just hang fully relaxed. Now deepening the breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Inhale, fill the belly, fill the lungs, hold, and exhale. Inhale, fill the belly, fill the lungs, hold, and exhale. Now we're gonna sip in as much air as we can possibly contain, holding for as long as we can, and only when we're ready, exhaling with an audible sigh, releasing any tension that may have built up through the day, the week, or lifetime. Releasing it back into the field to be transmuted for the spiritual benefit of all beings. Now bringing our hands into prayer, becoming aware, recognizing and embracing the presence of our whole being. And just taking a moment to bathe in the majesty of this moment. We're now going to repeat a few affirmations, knowing that we can return to these words anytime we feel like we need to come back to ourselves, especially in those moments where we feel we're starting to turn on ourselves. I love myself. I trust myself. I honor myself. And I value myself. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is.
And becoming aware of our body, focusing now on your right hand, feel the sensations in your right hand. As you notice the gentle rhythm of your breathing, can you now just imagine, only imagine now, breathing in through the palm of your right hand, up through your arm, resting at your heart space. Exhaling out through the left arm and out through the left palm. The next breath in, I'd like you to take it in through the left palm, up the left arm into your heart space. Exhaling out again through the right arm, out through your right palm. And let's do that 2 more times. Inhaling in through your right palm, up the arm, into your heart space. Exhaling out through your left arm, out of your left palm. And one more time, inhaling in through your left palm, up your left arm, into your heart space. Exhaling out through the right arm, out through the right palm. And bringing your attention now to your whole body. Feeling that sense of deep relaxation and surrender. Your body is completely at ease, and your mind is calm and receptive. And now your mind and body are in a beautiful state of relaxation where your subconscious mind is open and receptive to positive suggestions for personal growth and transformation. I'd like you to now, just imagine, only imagine now, a bright and radiant light shining down upon you, enveloping you in its warm and comforting glow. This light represents the power of your beautiful unconscious mind, the source of your inner strength and inner wisdom. As you bask in this light, feel a deep sense of relaxation and peace. Allowing yourself to let go of any limiting beliefs or negative thoughts that no longer serve you. Watch them dissolve and flow away, leaving space for positive and empowering beliefs to take root within you. Because while wandering down the path of wonder, we briefly escape the world of separation and enter a world of unity. And now a few affirmations for you to silently whisper inside. I am deeply relaxed and open to positive change. I release all fear and embrace confidence, self-assurance, and empowerment. I release and let go of anything that isn't serving me, and I'm fully aligned with my highest potential. I trust in my inner wisdom to guide me towards my highest good. And just take a few moments to immerse yourself in this state of deep relaxation and positive transformation. And only once your beautiful unconscious minds have fully accepted all of these beautiful blessings, only then will you open your eyes. Beautiful Valerie Miller, thank you so much for being the absolute most perfect first guest I could have ever asked for. Thank you so much for being here, sharing so much of your personal story. That's one thing that I'll always remember about when I first met you, is you instantly started sharing deeply personal things about yourself, and it showed me that I was safe to do the same. And this is so much of what this podcast is about. So thank you so much. And I cannot wait to have you back on again. Thank you all, everyone. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could sing or play an instrument for you, I would sing and play an instrument for you. If I could dance for you, I would dance for you. If I could paint for you, I would paint for you. But my thing is words. But the problem about words is that you may listen to them.
And that would be a mistake.